Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Chiang. Hello, and welcome back to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. Today, I'm going to do something a little different, and we're going to try this out and see how it goes. I just finished reading a blog article on the White Coat Investor website that was published on February 9th, 2026. And I just would like to kind of talk about the article and reflect on it. This article was written by Dr. Jim Daly, the founder of White Coat Investor, and is titled, "Will Your Retirement Go as Planned?" He writes this article after reading a forum thread where a poster asked the question, "Did your retirement go as planned?" Jim's thought was that the poster would hear primarily financial stories about portfolios and asset allocations and running out of money, but that wasn't actually what happened at all. And that was a reflection that was in this particular blog article. Jim gives a sample of many of the responses to illustrate this important point about retirement. The very first response was, "Nope, spouse died 4 years after I retired. That was not the plan." Jim quotes many of the comments, and I don't want to read them all. You can go to the White Coat Investor website and look for the article if you actually want to read them. But there were several people who commented about essentially being retired earlier than they expected because of being let go at work, and due to their advanced age or position, they weren't in a position to start over or start working again. As one person put it, they did not retire, they get retired, meaning they were forced to retire several years before they were actually financially prepared to do so. One person mentioned that at age 64, their whole department was laid off. It sounds like many people were affected by the COVID pandemic and ended up leaving medicine partially due to the pandemic. Then there was a group of people who talked about all their aspirations for traveling the world or doing activities like playing golf when they retired. But in the end, their health failed them and they weren't actually able to do the things they wanted to do once they were retired. Many people talked about losing their spouses early as well. And while no one said this specifically, it may be that the desire to travel decreased a lot once they were alone. There were people who faced large health problems like having a stroke or having back and spine issues, such that mobility was highly decreased. Some people ended up having to be a caretaker for a disabled child, spouse, or even a parent. There was one person who retired at age 49, so quite young, and they were single and childless, so they thought they would be able to be free and do lots of traveling, which they did get to do for the first 2 years. Unfortunately, their parents ended up needing a lot more help, and now they're at the point where they can't be away from their parents for more than a couple hours at a time. Another couple talked about retiring at age 57, which they called early-ish, and they did start traveling extensively. But they also ended up letting their health go and gaining a lot of additional weight, which caused them to get high blood pressure and high cholesterol and develop arthritis. They ended their post with saying that it's much easier to stay in shape than to get in shape, which is probably wise advice. There is one comment that I would like to read. It goes, "My condolences to the people who have lost a spouse. But that is something I knew would be a big risk. There are also people who used to post here who went missing and who likely died, so the post you see about things going well literally has a lot of survivorship bias. One of the reasons I retired in my late 50s, as soon as I financially could, was that I had 1 year in my early 50s where I went to 3 funerals of people who were roughly my age. I was not real close to any of them, but when you see coworkers and neighbors dying, that does get you thinking. This joint life expectancy calendar is pretty simplistic, but playing with your numbers in it may give you some surprises since joint life expectancy is not intuitive." https://www.kitces.com/ joint-life-expectancy-and-mortality-calculator. And I'll have that link in the show notes. The post continues. For example, according to it for a 60-year-old couple, there is more than a 25% chance that they will both not make it to 70. And I would assume that there is at least an equal chance that one of them will have life-limiting health problems by then too. Your original question asked, as planned. So you really need to include the risk of dying in your plans. When it comes to retirement, most of us are most worried about actually running out of money. The truth is, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably doing a lot of financial planning such that that's really not going to be your issue. There's actually a good chance that you'll die with more money in your portfolio than you started out when you retired. Don't believe me? There's actually a calculator to help you figure this out. It's at engaging-data.com, and the calculator is Will Money Last Retire Early? I'll put the link for that calculator in the show notes as well. For example, just for fun, I put in having a portfolio of $4 million, retiring at age 55, with spending of $120,000 a year, which is basically what you could expect to spend if you're doing a 4% withdrawal rate. So you're withdrawing $160,000, but then after taxes, you have, let's just say $120,000 to spend. Given that scenario, if your portfolio is 80% stocks, 10% bonds, and 10% cash, there's actually 0% chance of going broke. So it's hard to describe the graph, but just looking at the graph, I would say there looks to be a 25 to 30% chance that the balance in your portfolio will be less at the time of your death than it was when you initially retired. Maybe a 40% chance that the balance of your portfolio will be greater than what your portfolio started out with at the time of your death. And a 30% chance that your portfolio, when you die, will be twice the value than when you actually initially retired. The fun part of calculators is, of course, you can adjust different parameters. And so even with the same parameters, if I lower the retirement age to age 50, there's still actually no chance of becoming broke. I did add in a spending flex of 20%, meaning this is a percentage of annual spending that could be reduced if the portfolio balance is lower than your initial balance. The point is, most of us who are preparing financially for retirement, we're not going to die broke. We're going to die earlier than we thought. We're going to do less than we originally thought we were going to do. And we may face being alive, but no longer having our spouse, and so therefore potentially being more alone than we envision now. I know I constantly harp on my husband to exercise and live a healthy lifestyle because he needs to outlive me. And even though we're basically the same age, we were born about 8 months apart. Being a woman, I have a higher life expectancy than he does. And so I want him to make up for it by living at least as healthy as I do. My husband is currently age 47 and I'm 46 years of age as of the recording of this podcast episode. And looking at the life expectancy calculator for couples, there's actually only a 73% chance that both of us will still be alive in 20 years when he's 67 and I'm 66. That's a lot lower than I would have thought. 30 years from now, when he's 77 and I'm 76, there's only a 43% chance that both of us will still be alive. 59% chance that he'll be, and 73% chance that I'll be. This honestly is not something I really fully thought out before. Like I said, I have thought about the fact that I may lose my husband before I die. But certainly I did not think about it as possibly being so soon as before even traditional retirement age of 65. If we both wait till we are age 65 to retire, that means that there's a 25% chance that one of us is already dead. And that's really quite alarming. So I guess the point of me recording this podcast episode and my reaction to reading this article is just to share the perspective change that I got from reading it and hopefully help you have a little bit of perspective change as well. One thing is to potentially really look at your expectations of what you plan on doing when you're retired. And if you're envisioning having a long period of time where you'll be active and able to do a lot of activities, well, I certainly hope that is true for you. It's certainly possible that there are only a few years, if any, where that's possible. And that's another reason why I think about retiring early when my husband and I do both still have good health and we can really be active and explore the world together. As doctors, we know that tomorrow is not guaranteed to any of us, and yet we often don't actually live like that. That is something I have tried to do more of, is live with the idea that if I were to die in a week or a month, that I have no regrets, that I've lived a full life and I'm happy with how I'm spending my time. I think another take home from this is really to take care of your health and encourage your spouse to take care of their health so that you have the ability to be active and live well in your retirement, since many of the people who posted talked about health issues as really a limiting factor of what they could do in their retirement. The other thing is, depending on your situation, is talking to your parents about their retirement and their financial situation. Luckily for me, my parents are still in relatively good health for their age, and they actually enjoy a nice pension. So I know financially they're actually just fine. And I will say, as healthy as my parents are and how much my dad loved to travel, they do travel a lot less. And that change really seemed to happen after the COVID pandemic. That being said, I'm excited to be able to spend almost 2 weeks in Taiwan with them in the very near future. We're going there for spring break, and then my husband is joining us as well once his spring break starts. And my sister's family is also coming. So this is what I mean by really living for today and living without regrets. I've wanted to go back to Taiwan, where my parents grew up for a long time, and not only to go back myself, but to go back with them, be able to see where they grew up and share in their memories. And so we're finally making that happen. So I hope after listening to this episode, you can think more about how you want to live your life now. Hopefully that involves doing what you can to maximize your health, things like exercising, maintaining a healthy weight, and getting appropriate screening tests. Cherish your loved ones because you don't know how long you'll have with them, but potentially make plans for when things don't go as planned. Let me know what you thought about this podcast episode. Again, this was completely unscripted, though I do plan to do some editing. You can reach me by emailing growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. I read every email that comes in and would love your input and feedback on this podcast. If you've been enjoying the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast and haven't yet left a 5-star review, I would love it if you could leave a 5-star review with Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you are currently listening to this podcast on. Thank you so much for being a listener, and have a wonderful week. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you.